guys, we got a couple things left to cover, and we're going to breeze through these next two and then talk about the biggest one last. And I think Dan and I have a lot of experience to talk about, and Joe has facing it. But the Iron Hills Dwarf, just the basic dwarf model, is nothing to laugh at. He is expensive. He is the base cost of usually most armies' elite troop units, but he's got it. You know, you're talking fight 4, strength 4, defense 7, and then he's got shield wall. So you're talking about a defense 8 move, slow moving. Might fight or not fight 5. I'm sorry, movement 5, which is Dwarf's biggest drawback. But we already talked about mitigating that with the ballista. He's got a lot of ability, a lot of versatility though too, because you can change out his shield. His base profile comes with heavy armor, sword, and shield. You can change out the shield for Madoc. Now, if you do this, you go down from defense 7 to defense 6. That is in the FAQs, so don't forget that. If you just like, oh yeah, I've given him the Madoc, I'm still defense 7. No, you're defense 6 now.
You lose shield wall too.
You also lose shield wall because you have to. Yeah, that's a good point. So these guys might be good on the outside, but Madocs are nothing to laugh at because it is a 2-handed weapon, and they can use either bash or piercing strike special rules. So bash is Joe. You know bash better. Hit it for us.
Bash is, for instance, I do this a lot with my hobbits. Bash is a special strike. Bash is a special strike. If you win the fight, you can opt to bash them. Both players roll a d6, and they add their strength value. The model who gets the highest result, so let's just say it's a hobbit, knocks that model to the ground.
Yep. Well, it's if the basher gets the higher.
Yeah, if the basher gets the higher.
Yep.
But see, the thing about the Iron Hills dwarves that makes them pretty juicy with bash is their strength 4, which is very good for a troop.
Yep. So, and then they also get piercing strike, which we all know does increases your strength to 5 while decreasing your defense by D3. So you could drop yourself down to defense 3 potentially, since they're already defense 6 by losing the shield. However, strength 5 is nothing to laugh at when you're going for just a basic troop, and you can combo that with the fact that it's a 2-handed weapon. So you're going to get +2 if I'm thinking that right. Yeah, well, it's not +2. Well, your strength would go up to 5, then you'd still get the +1 to wound for 2-hand strike. There you go. That's how it works.
You can if you win the fight, you can absolutely decimate.
Yeah, you're talking about a mini Dane. That's what he becomes. A 1 warrior can become a mini Dane because Dane is defense. I'm sorry, it's not defense. It's strength 5 with a 2-handed weapon. So yeah, they're pretty expensive. But the Madoc is free. You just lose shield wall and you go down to defense 6. I don't know. That's a pretty good combo there, guys. I don't think I've never done it, but now that I'm reading through this, I'm realizing how good that is.
It's definitely a really good combo to test out. I think it'd be good. I think maybe sprinkling a few in your army, like 3, get like a pack of them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
3 to 4. Yeah.
3 or 4, and kind of put them in with other guys, so your 2-handed ability gets mitigated a little bit.
They would be really good on the end of an Iron Hill shield wall, where losing the shield wall is not going to hurt the rest of your shield wall, but gives you some good hitting power that can help, cause the shield wall to wrap and encircle, or just punch through on the edges. So, yeah, I like that. I actually really like that. So the other things they can get, you can change out the shield for a crossbow, and crossbows we all know about, 24-inch range, strength 4, can't move, or you can't move, or you can't shoot. So if you move it, you can't shoot them. If you don't move, you can shoot them. But I've seen a lot of folks, they've taken the ballista and then also sprinkled in like 6 or 7 of these guys, and you're talking about a lot of hitting power from range then. And I think, Joe, you were mentioning that earlier.
Yes.
Okay. Lost Joe for a second. Yeah, it's all good.
So my mic cut out.
It's all good. But yeah, so they can take the crossbow. That does cost a point though. So if you lose your shield, and you actually have to pay a point for that, because usually crossbows are 2-point upgrade. Then you can also give them a spear, which is how you get that nice defense 8 Iron Hill shield and spear wall. And then of course you can give them a banner for 20 for the ability to reroll in combat. So moving on from there, we're going to talk about the cav unit. And Dan hit this earlier. They are the only ones. Iron Hill's the only ones that have troops that are cavalry, and that is the Iron Hill's Goat Rider. So the Goat Rider, I mean, they still have that movement reduction. They only do move 8 inches. The one biggest thing that I'm not a fan of is that they're only defense 6. So they have heavy armor, sword, war spear, and war goat. And I honestly don't understand why they don't have a shield, because even in the movies, they had shields. What do you guys think?
That's a good point. I think I've heard somebody else. I think King Bonsai brought that up before. Is why don't they have shields? Because in the movies they had shields, and he also brought up another interesting point. Kind of going back to the captain, is normally a captain is 1 point of strength higher than a normal troop, but the Iron Hills captain isn't. So
that's actually a good call.
I don't know why they did that with these two guys. I don't know why the Goat Rider doesn't have a shield. I don't know why the Iron Hills captain doesn't have a strength 5.
Yeah, because the Iron Hills Goat Riders can do the same thing. They can exchange the War Spear for a Matic, which I don't really see the point of doing that. I'm going to be honest. We'll go back to what I was just saying about you can make them strength 5 using Piercing Strike, and then the Matic is 2-handed, so you get +1 to wound. But that makes it a lot harder to do because you still take that -1. So if you get the charge off, you'll have 2 dice to roll, but you're talking about 2 dice with -1. And the way I roll, I probably roll a 2 and a 1. I just feel like I've never seen anybody give their Goat Riders Matics. I've only ever seen them with the War Spear. I feel like that it's the safer way to play. It's a more conservative way. You're not going to have. You're just giving up a little bit of killing power by not taking the Matic. But then they can also be given a banner, which I don't think I'd ever give an Iron Hills Goat Rider a banner either, because again, you're going to be taking out -1 to your dice roll. Unless you're going to be using Dane as a, assassin unit with like 4 or 5 of these guys, and you need to have a banner near him. But I wouldn't. Would you guys? Would you mount a banner?
No, they're kind of safer in a shield wall, and I would never take a Matic either, just because War Spear is a lance, so you do get a bonus there. But if you take the Matic, then you're more prone to losing a fight and dying, especially if you're Piercing Strike, and that's a really expensive maul to lose in that scenario.
Yeah, they are one of the more expensive calves. So
I probably would just take them bare bones. I wouldn't give. I mean, a banner. I did that with my minister before, and you're kind of prone to. You're kind of prone to wandering off with your hero, and then your troops are not getting a banner bonus.
Yeah. I would say it'd be great to get the banner around, but you're really going to want that banner in your shield wall. That way, you can make sure your shield wall is winning as well. Joe, what were you about to say?
I agree with you guys. I would take a lance. Well, the War Spear. But in terms of I would never take a banner mounted unless I was gonna play a full Goat Rider army.
Army, that would make sense.
And I have versed a full Goat Rider army, by the way.
Really? Who played that? Let's give a shout out to them. Who played that?
I don't remember his name. I versed him at Nova 2018. He had 2 Iron Hills Ballistas, 2 Iron Hills Captains on Goats, and however many Goat Riders. I don't remember.
Well, I will say, I think I'm going to give a shout out to a guy, Blake Dixon, talked to it. Blake used to be part of our league for a while when he was here doing his fellowship to get his for being a doctor. He's moved to Arkansas, and if you guys have ever seen, he does Arkenstone. It's not Arkenstone. Arkenstone is his name of his business. He does wood burning. So he has made us a lot of really nice stuff, from measurement markers to light wheel fate trackers to priority tokens to turn trackers, just all kinds of stuff. So Blake Dixon, thanks for all that. Shout out to you and your business. And also shout out to the idea, because he brought it up. And it is a deadly I think it's a really great idea. It's definitely a force that could be a glass cannon with the defense 6. I know that's nothing to laugh at, but yeah, it could be scary, especially having Dane and all of that.
When I versed it, it was 2 Iron Hills Ballistas. It was before they changed siege weapon because that was the last Nova where they used the Hobbit rules.
Yeah. So
And
it's cheaper.
yeah, it was cheaper, but then also you cannot shoot at a model if it can scatter onto your own.
Yeah.
So he versed my Rohan with Saruman and Legolas in it, and basically I was able to command a guy out to the point where he couldn't shoot at me after turn 1. And Rohan models are a lot more point effective cavalry, so I had a lot more models, so I was able to kind of encircle him and trap him. It was a nightmare matchup for him, but against a shield wall, I think it would be a pretty good list.
Yeah, I agree. Even a defense 7-1, because then you're still winning on 5s.
Yeah.
We'll hit the goat real quick. The goat he's a armored, basically an armored horse at defense 5, and strength 4 as well. And then they actually have mountain dwellers, so they're moving over rocky terrain like it's open terrain, which is great. And they have devastating charge, which is when they charge into combat against a man-sized or smaller model. You roll a d6 on a 5 up, they're knocked to the ground. So if you can roll in, that's where an all-mounted goat rider force would be a nightmare, because you can roll in there and have guys already prone before you're even rolling for the dice roll, for dual roll, So that could be where, maybe you have a really bad turn of rolls for combat, but you had a really good turn of rolls for devastating charge, so you're not losing anything, because cavalry models hate to lose when it comes to charging, because they usually fall off real fast. But being able to knock guys prone before you even get into combat can mitigate losing the combat, because then your opponent's just not striking you, they're just standing up. So that's a really good special rule there.
I can say this, so I've never taken goat riders when I play Iron Hills, but I can say as someone who's versed goat riders, when a goat charges in and knocks your hero to the ground, which has happened to me a lot, Jason, that might be the one time. That might be the one time he actually rolls good. It's when he rolls
yes,
the knock. And literally,
that's why I said it.
when he does that, you slap your forehead. I slap my own forehead, I should say.
I mean, there's nothing you can do against it. Like I said, they're expensive models, but that is a really good special rule. So yeah.
Yeah, they're expensive. I think I would put maybe 2 or 3 in a pure Iron Hills army, maybe 4. I mean, honestly, if you can start comparing costs to like other cavalry units.
Yeah.
But I think for Iron Hills force, 2 or 3, maybe 4, depending on points.
I usually try to get 3 minimum. 4 is really good if I have the points for it.
Yeah, but say if you're playing 1,000 points, 4,
probably 6,
maybe 6. You could build a full goat army if you wanted to. I mean, honestly, you could take Dane, 18 goat riders. That's your army. Bam.
Yeah, pretty much.
If you wanted to go that route.
Yeah, I think you actually get more than 18 goat riders at 1,000 points. Well, I'm assuming you're also including the ballista in that.
Yeah, of course, the ballista.
Yeah. All right, guys. So we are on to the last profile, and this is the biggest one because it's got 4 pages worth of rules. We'll talk about it. I don't know if we're going to go through every single rule just because there's 4 pages. But I'm going to let Dan take this one because this is one that he took recently, like I said, way at the beginning, and that is the Iron Hills Chariot. So, Dan, talk to us about the Iron Hills Chariot event and tell us about how he did for you at that event, what you think of it overall.
Yeah, so I took the Iron Hills. All right, so I played Lake Town, and one of the big things that I kind of was a detractor for me is that Lake Town, you got a lot of strength 4. You got a lot of strength 3, and then if you piercing straight, you get strength 4. And that's good, but, I was like, I need something with a little more oomph, a little bit more knockout power. And so Joe was like, hey, you should take the Iron Hills Ballista. That would probably help at your Lake Town. I was like, nah, everybody takes the Ballista. I want to do something different. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to do the Chariot. Because I had versed Jason, who played the Chariot. And, the Chariot's a nightmare diverse. And so I was like, yeah, I'm going to take the Chariot because it's going to give me some knockout power. And it's going to also absorb some wounds, hopefully, that will not be affecting my high mall count. So I took that army to the Dry Falls of Reros. I believe is the name of the tournament.
That's
And
correct.
it was an escalation tournament. I had the Iron Hills Chariot in there every round. I think there was 4. I had it in there all 4 rounds, and it performed very well every game. Just some. It's pretty much all right. Here's how I was thinking about how I was going to sum up the Iron Hills Chariot. There is a few units in the game that I would classify as a tank, like a legit tank. It can take a lot of wounds. It can dish out some damage and literally put the fear of God in your opponent. And the Iron Hills Chariot would be one of them. I would say the Mumok would be one of them. The Belrog, Sauron.
Great Beast of Gorgoroth.
Yeah, all these guys are just tanks. And they can dish out damage. They can absorb damage. And they're just fun to play. So the Iron Hills Chariot comes with a crew of 4. And you can replace the driver with a captain, which I would recommend, me personally, after thinking about it and reflecting on it, I would always do, just so you have that ability to march.
And you get fight 5. That's the biggest thing.
Yeah, and you get fight 5. That's right. You get the fight 5. And so if you do that, then you get a captain profile, and the crew itself is a dwarven crew. It's kind of like a goat rider. It's fight 4, strength 4, defense 6, 1 attack, 1 wound, courage 4. The chariot itself is movement 8, with fight 4, strength 4, defense 8, 2 attacks, 5 wounds, and courage 3. The war gear, the crew comes with heavy armor and a sword, and then you can also if you really wanted to invest some points and some time in all the conversions, you can also replace the crew with Champions of Erebor, which
That's fun to do.
Yeah, we'll talk more about that in a second, I guess. Its special rules is Fearless, which is awesome, and Monstrous Charge, which is also awesome. So here's how the chariot works. I'm kind of gonna give you guys some examples, kind of cliff notes on all these pages here. So the crew works like this. Now, let me talk about the movement of the chariot. That's even better. Let me talk about the movement of the chariot first. So it moves 8 inches, but you can't move 8 inches in a straight line. You have to use pivots. So you move 4 inches. You have to move in increments of 4. So you can move 4 inches and then you pivot a 45-degree angle. And there's a little template.
I think it's 3 inches. Every 3 inches you can pivot.
Oh, okay, every 3 inches.
Oh, no, you're right. It is 4 inches. Yeah, it is 4 inches.
Yeah, it's 4 inches, and you have to pivot 45 degrees, which sounds like, oh man, you mean I can't just charge in there? Well, generally the pivot actually helps with impact hits, which we'll talk about here in a second. So
you can charge straight 8 inches if you want to.
Oh, you can. Okay. Well, if you want to move it
for movement.
Yeah, if you want to movement, you have to pivot it. Yeah.
Yeah, if you're trying to turn on an angle, you can't, like, if you have a cavalry model and say, for example, it's facing forward and you just want to turn it around and run backwards, you can do that. But the chariot doesn't allow you to do that. You have to do what Dan said, and every 4 inches of movement is a 45-degree pivot. So, yeah.
So one of the crew members mans the the bolt thrower, and it is a D6. I think it's strength 4. Yeah, D6 strength 4 shots.
Yep, it's basically a crossbow.
Yeah, so you're hitting on 4s. You do not take the -1 penalty for shooting if you move.
Yep.
And you can also shoot while in combat, but you forfeit that attack from the crew. So here's how. Let me go back to the charge real quick. So you move in on some guys, right? You move in. Let's say you move in on 2 guys. So those 2 guys take something called impact hits. Each impact hit is 3 dice at strength 6, which is awesome.
Yeah.
If you kill both those guys, hey, you get to continue your movement. So let's say you charge 2 inches to get to those guys, and you kill them both through your impact hits. You get to move another 2 inches, and if you kill both those guys, you get to pivot and then move another 4 inches. and
yeah,
killing guys all around.
Really good.
So just imagine, guys, if you run into a shield wall with this thing, how much? I mean, just think about that. You'd be wounding Defense 6 Gondor guys on 4s, which you have good odds out of 3 dice to roll.
Even high defense units, and I'm gonna jump in here because of the fact that I will say the whole reason for the Iron Hills Chariot is to get these impact hits. It's probably not good. I have never had a game where it makes up its points in combat. I have always had a game where it gets most of its points back in the impact hits. And Joe can attest to this, even against Defense 8 Iron Hills, because I've played his Iron Hills Thranduil's Halls combo for test games with my pure Iron Hills list, with the Iron Hills Chariot and Captain, of course, on the Chariot. And I have charged in one turn. In one turn against, he usually goes about what 10 wide. You got like 5 deep. You go 5 wide, 2 deep.
Yep.
I have killed all 10 in one turn of impact hits. And you're talking about a 12-point model, and I just literally removed all 10 of them if they have spears. So it can really change the game with those impact hits. And you were talking about earlier that the tanks, like Dan said, and then they listed out all those models: the Great Beast of Gorgoroth, the Balrog, even the Khanda's Chariot. Those things have these impact hits, and the bigger they are, the better their impact hits are. So, like the Great Beast is strength 4, Moonmoks are strength 10, I believe, or are they strength 8? I think they're strength 8. But these 3 strength 6 hits, that's what you're banking on with this Chariot. You're not banking on it, killing a million things in combat. You're banking on it just running your opponent over, so to speak. So, yeah. Take it away, Dan. What else we got?
Okay, so if you charge a model and you do not kill them, then the Chariot halts, and you're in combat with that model, and you gain the monster's charge special rule, which means that even if you charge a cavalry model, then they are knocked to the ground. So it's awesome. You can really screw somebody's Rohan lineup.
Yeah. Did you talk about the built-in crossbow on it?
Yeah, I cover that.
That's the rapid fire. So when he was talking about that earlier, he said you don't get that. So the way it works in combat is when he charges, you fail to hit something with the impact hit, like Dan said, you get that +1 to your one attack to your dice. So the Chariot has two attacks base. If you get the charge off, that's 3. Now, all additional crew outside of the drivers, and there's 3, get to add their attacks to that. So in a turn, you're looking at potentially 6 attacks. So when he was talking about using the rapid fire bolt thrower, if you choose to shoot the bolt thrower, the operator therefore cannot loan their attack. So if you do that in a turn where you have charged and all the crew are still alive, you would only be at a maximum of 5 dice. I say only as if that's a bad thing. But, it's really good if you can roll good in combat, which I never do. And I had one turn against Joe where I had 12 dice to wound, and I think I got 3 wounds. And that was just one of those ones where it's like, yep, that's my dice rolling. But since Joe, you brought up the rapid fire bolt thrower, that's one we should definitely talk on, because normally in combat, you can't shoot at a model engaged in combat. Well, the rapid fire bolt thrower breaks that rule with its special ability, and that is it can still shoot in combat, like you said, but it doesn't need to take in the way test for models engaged with it. So what does that mean? It means he can actually shoot past guys that are in base combat. So he shoots out of combat, and he can also shoot guys that are in combat with it. So you can pick off guys in combat with the Chariot, which is really good. For example, Joe did it one game where he had actually I think it was you, Dan. You had 15 Lake Town guys on.
Yeah.
And one of them was Bard, who had the higher fight. And I'm like, well, with 15 dice, you're going to get 1/6. Well, let's see if I can't even the odds a little bit. And I rolled my D6 dice and ended up getting 6 and shooting all 6 shots. And I think I got 5 of them hit. And the strength 4 against the defense 4 of the defense 4, defense 5.
D5 with a shield.
Yeah. Okay. So I think a couple of them were just spear guys that didn't have it, or archers. But out of those 5 attacks, I picked 4 guys off. So in a situation where you're looking at being outnumbered 15 to 5, well, why not go ahead and just sacrifice that 1 extra dice roll so you can't pick off a few guys? And it worked out well for me because if I remember correctly, I actually ended up winning that dice roll and forced Bard to burn a point of might to get the 6 he needed to win the fight.
Yeah. That sounds about right.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you and I both do really poorly with our rules.
That's true.
We have a lot of those head slap moments, like Joe was saying. But yeah, the rapid fire bolt thrower is nothing to laugh at. And Joe, I remember using it against your Isengard, where in one turn I mowed down like 6 guys in movement with the tramples, and then 4 more guys with the shooting ability. And I think I actually shot and killed. No, I ran him over, but I shot Saruman off his horse, and then the next turn ran him over. So.
Yeah, that's the game where I was able to control your chariot with the magic. You're the driver. I was able to transfix the driver. And then basically, as soon as I was like, well, I need to shift my focus on this other hero, Dane. He was able to run over like 9 Uruk-hai and then kill Saruman.
Yeah. You kept it controlled all game, but then Dane was on the other side doing what Dane does, which is surprising because usually when I play with Dane, he doesn't do a darn thing. And as soon as you turned away, the chariot did exactly what it needed to do. So, and it made up its points in that game just by killing Saruman. So, but yeah, the biggest weakness I would say for the chariot is the movement, like Dan was saying. You can't turn it around. Well, you can. If you want to turn it around 180 degrees, you literally take your full movement. So it's one of those pieces where it can be a huge threat to your opponent, but if your opponent has a fast-moving army, for example, Joe's all-mounted Rohan, which outruns the chariot at 10 inches as opposed to the chariot's 8, he can just run around and make it almost impossible for me to use the chariot effectively. But against a shield wall army or a foot army like Dan's, his Lake Town, it's really good. And one thing to mention is these impact hits, you're not charging, you're moving. So there's no courage check needed. Now, yeah, it's already fearless, but there's still no courage check needed, and you can just move straight through. So the reason you would take a captain, like Dan was saying earlier, is to call a heroic march and add 5 inches of movement. Because unfortunately, they don't have the cavalry keyword, which is weird. I feel like they should. Or they do. Do they get the cavalry keyword? Would monsters charge?
I'm not sure. When they charge, I just know when it charges, it counts as monstrous cav.
Okay. I don't think it does, because usually when we play, it's 11 inch. Yeah, but still, adding that 3 inches, you're now moving 11 inches. And if your opponent's lined up right or has a horde army, like, playing Goblin Town, moving 11 inches straight through something like that, you're going to do a lot of damage. And I did that to Dan in his Lake Town one game. Terrible me. I'm not sorry.
Yeah. Another thing to think about when you're in combat with the chariot is you have the option to either strike the chariot or the crew. As like you have the option when you're fighting normal cav. Except the caveat is instead of hitting the crew on a 4-up, you're hitting the crew on a 5-up. I think.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, on a 5 or a 6, you hit the dwarf.
Yeah. It's defense 6 crew, so it's not like they're easy to wound in the first place.
So
no, it is 4. It is a 4-up like normal. Yeah, it says it's in the chariot in combat. If beaten, any model wishing to strike the crew must roll to see if they hit the crew or the chariot.
Yep.
To do this, roll a d6 for each strike. On a 4+, the strike hits the crew member of the attacker's choice. Anything else hits the chariot. So, yeah. The big thing for that, though, is that the chariot, if it loses a fight, doesn't back away. Therefore, it can never be trapped. And if the chariot dies, then all the crew inside are instantly lost. Although, to be honest, that defense 8 and with 5 wounds, I think the chariot has been killed once. I think, Dan, you did it. You killed my chariot.
I did. I did. No, No, I didn't actually.
It was me. It was Gothmog and his Moranin boys.
Oh, and then we realized afterwards that he actually didn't do it because I won the fight. Because all the guys were prone, remember?
Yes, that's right. Yeah, you're correct.
Yeah, you killed me, but you.
Yeah,
you
I wouldn't be able.
shot
I
me.
wouldn't have been able to have wounded you.
Yeah, because you shot. Side note: Joe had used what was it, the troll, the catapult troll?
Yeah, I shot a catapult into that fight, and
yeah,
I didn't realize until like after the game basically that every model in the fight for me would have been prone.
yeah. So he went ahead and rolled strikes, and yeah, but he did. But it did take. It was literally the end of the game at that point. That was like the last turn. So Dan has gotten my chariot down to 1 wound several times. Joe has done it a couple times, but for the most part, that thing is hard to kill.
Yeah,
You really need.
John Bealey is actually the only one who killed it at the tournament, and he rolled pretty dang hot. He was rolling 6s with Faramir. He charged in Faramir, and actually tried to wound the chariot. He chose the chariot and put a lot of attacks on it. He was rolling hot 6s, so he did kill it, but it did take the whole game. And the chariot did its job. It acted like a tank. It took a lot of hits and held up an entire flank for the whole game, and I was able to focus my army on the other 3 objectives. So,
that's actually something we should think about real quick since we're talking about it. I've never thought of now I've never played against the chariot. I've only played with it. But usually when we fight each other, we are trying to attack the crew. Maybe we should be trying to attack the chariot outright, you know?
Yeah, no,
I think if you fight that mega chariot, the one with all the dwarf heroes on it,
yes,
I think definitely go for the chariot.
yes.
I think because like the thing about the Iron Elves crew is they're relatively easy to kill.
Yes. They're only defense 6.
Yeah. Now, granted, I remember we've had games where I killed all the crew except for the captain, so it still gets to do its thing.
Yeah.
Because he himself is pretty tough to kill.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a double-edged sword. I think.
Well, this is something that I just realized that we have never really paid attention to until right now reading it. But if your strike gets through, then it hits the crew member of the attacker's choice. So
yeah,
you could be attacking the driver the whole time. Now it's like a normal, siege weapon. If you kill the attacker, then one of the other, or not siege weapon. I'm sorry. I'm trying to think of like the moon mock, for example. You kill the driver, somebody else can take roll. Great Beast of Roroth. That's a perfect example. It's got 10 models in it, 9 orcs with bow, and then the driver. You kill the commander, which is the driver, then one of the other orcs takes over. So you guys could be trying to kill the captain the whole time, and that could be big because of the fact that if you kill the captain, you take away its fight 5.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point.
So, I mean, usually we're just like, all right, we killed this crew. Okay, we killed that crew. And now we're trying to kill the driver. But I think it would be smart to try and attack the driver straight up the whole time. I would say if you have a strength 3 army, don't go for the chariot straight up. A strength 4 army, I would say go for the chariot straight up. Because if you can get enough dice in there and roll enough 6s in a couple turns, you could kill it. Of course, that's also depending on the fact that it doesn't win priority and run you over at the same time.
Yeah. Well, that's what happened to John is because of the Master Bow that the captain does have. Yeah, I was able to actually contest every heroic move Faramir called. And eventually, I won, and actually ran over and killed a bunch of Rangers, really weakening that flank. I actually thought I was going to win it, but he came through at the end of the game. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think he had Faramir. I think he had Faramir just on foot. He might have had him mounted, but you can't give him a lance on that Legendary Legion. So
yeah, he was playing the Rangers of Faramir.
Yeah, I think he had him on a.
I was playing as well.
Yeah, I think he just had him on a horse, but he was still rolling pretty good. So he got it.
But what you just said, Dan, is the exact reason why you take the captain. Yes, it's expensive. It's very expensive. If you were to play a 500-point game, that's half your army right there in the chariot. But the fact is that if you have the captain, he's going to have Master of Battle. So you've got a 33% chance of getting a free heroic movement. And he does have 2 points of movement, or of might, I'm sorry, to call movements if he does fail. the Master of Battle. I mean, well, you get it even if but he does have 2 points of his own might, and that's usually where you're going to actually use him for heroic marches to maybe get that extra few inches to run through somebody's flank, and the fight 5. So it's a pointsy upgrade because he's 5 points cheaper than a straight up Iron Hills captain, but that's because of the fact that he loses. I think he's losing his shield. Yeah, he's losing his shield.
Yeah. He loses his shield.
So he's only defense 7 as opposed to defense 8, which again I think that's just kind of weird. Why they?
Well, even the Maul comes with a shield.
I know it comes with a shield. I don't understand sometimes why they does that. Yep. Because I'm reading through this real quick. It says if you take the Iron Hills captain, then an Iron Hills captain will replace the driver. The Iron Hills chariot. Iron Hills captain will have all the usual war gear and special rules that an Iron Hills captain would normally possess whilst riding the chariot. The chariot counts as a hero for Iron Hills. Well, maybe he does have it because it says it has all the usual war gear. So that would give him a shield. I don't know. For some reason, it's 5 points cheaper than just a straight up captain. But I rest that. Let's talk about the Mega Chariot, guys. It's the only thing we haven't covered yet.
The Mega Chariot is the regular chariot, but 5 times more scary.
It's the normal chariot on like steroids.
Well, it's 3 times more expensive.
Yeah, that too. Yeah.
It has basically, guys. The Mega Chariot is the regular Iron Hills chariot, but all the crew is replaced with, was it Dwalin, Ballin, Philly, and Killy.
Feely and Killy. Yep.
Feely and Killy.
The hero keyword.
Yep. And I've never versed it.
Yeah, you did. You played against me, remember?
Oh yeah. Forgot about that.
I versed it once.
Scary. It's scary, but here's my biggest thing about the chariot in general, and less. It's really just the chariot. The Mumok, I don't think, has this problem, and neither does the Great Beast. I mean, I'm sure they have the same problem, but there's one they have terror to help mitigate this. Is if that chariot does not win priorities, and you are just able to feed it one model a game, or a turn, sorry, then that thing gets stuck and stalled. And the big chariot, the Mega Chariot, has the exact same problem.
Yeah, that is very true.
I'm saying this, if you're gonna play the chariot, you got to be aware of that issue.
Well, and another big problem with the chariot, and we haven't brought this up yet, is it cannot do heroic combats.
That's true. Yeah, you cannot do a heroic combat with it.
Now, it can benefit from heroic combat. Say you have Dane in the combat with it, but it cannot call one on its own because the driver of the chariot is not technically in combat. So even with the Mega Chariot, that is a weakness because even though all 3 of the hero so the way the Mega one works is Ballin is the driver, Dwalin mans the bolt thrower, and then Feely and Keeler in there. They are the only ones that can be in this. So in a normal situation, if one of the models, if one of the crew dies on the regular chariot and you have another Iron Hills dwarf nearby, you can put another Iron Hills dwarf in the chariot. They simply drop their shield, go to defense 6, but they become part of the crew. Whereas the big chariot, the Mega Chariot as we're calling it, you can only have the 4 heroes in it. And it still works just like the regular chariot does. It's still going to do that 4-inch movement, 45-degree pivot. It can only be shot by Dwalin, which isn't a bad thing, though, because now you've got a few points of might you can use for shooting. And then each one of these guys, they can actually use, they can call heroic strikes to get their fight values up. However, their strike only affects them. So it wouldn't affect the entire chariot. It's one of those weird ones.
Unique piece. There's nothing else in the game like it.
Yeah, it's very unique. It even says that too in the profile. In the combat, The chariot is very unusual in that a duel can effectively have multiple models on both sides of the fight. When making a duel roll, make sure to roll each dwarf's attacks separately for the purpose of using might points. Additionally, each dwarf may decide to use special strikes. If Keely or Feely use the feint special strike, then the fight values of all the crew in the chariot will be reduced by fight 3. If Keely or Feely use the stab special rule, then only they will be affected. If Dwalin uses the piercing strikes, then only his strength and defense will be affected.
Does he have like the 2-handed burly rule that he normally has?
Yes, it's the Champions of Erebor version, and the Champions of Erebor version, I believe, has that.
And he's fight 6, right? Does the chariot gain fight 6, or is only the driver? That gives you that.
Only he does. Well, no. They would all get it. They would all get it. Yeah. So it's going to be fight 6 base. Yeah. Yeah, because he has Burley. He's got the 2-handed axes, the axe, and then 2 axes. So he can still choose to do the fight with 2 axes in one hand, or in each hand, or 1 axe in each hand, and go 4 attacks. So I mean, you're talking about Dwalin. You're talking about Dwalin, Keely, Feely, and the chariots added attacks. What was it, Joe? We played it. I had like 12 dice in combat or something like that.
It was like literally he just took his 3 dice cubes and threw them on the table, and that's how many dice he got.
Yeah.
No, it was like 13 attacks or something like that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, 4 for Dwalin, 2 for Feely, 2 for Keely, and then 3 for the chariot if you get the charge off.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's really good. I mean, and then don't forget the fact that you have Balin allows him to use his Longbeard rule, where he can spend a point of will to reroll priority.
And I think that's really key for that chariot. Winning priorities.
Yes. I think that is its biggest strength, is the fact that when it moves, it's going to do devastating damage. Unless it's me, because there's half the games I play, I roll, and my first guy I run into, I roll 3 ones to win. That's its biggest strength, is being able to run things over, and its biggest weakness is the fact that if it doesn't move, you basically just have a big sitting target. And like Dan said, tanks don't like to be sitting targets. Let's be honest. They are strong, but if you can gang up on them, they can go down quickly.
They are also susceptible to magic.
Yes. Yes, they are.
You can transfix the driver.
Paralyze them.
Paralyze them. Yeah, I was paralyzed at the the Hendersonville tournament, and it took almost the entire game for me to get paralyzed.
Yep.
You know, somebody can, I don't know, sorcerers blast the driver and hit him with a strength 5 hit. They don't go flying out of the chariot, but they just take the strength 5 hit. So also command is a big one. So if somebody commands the driver, you can actually run somebody's army over with. Yeah, you can run. Say you have your chariot behind your guys, and somebody can command the chariot and run over your own guys with them.
Yes, that happened at the first Forge of the Potomac, hosted by John McConnell in Virginia. Someone was playing it, and I heard about it after the first round, where the guy was playing Iron Hills, and he had his driver, and it wasn't the captain, it's just a straight up driver, which is again another reason why I think you pay those points to make the driver a captain, so you have at least 1 point of will and a few points of might to resist a spell like this. His opponent used Compel, it went off, and he ran over and did the same thing that I did to Joe, and ran over half his army. And basically after that, the guy just gave up because half his army just got ran over by his own chariot.
Yeah, and if you don't take that captain, then you're just a sitting duck for magic, and that means, if somebody has a spellcaster, it's going to make it really hard for your chariot to actually perform. That being said, the chariot, every game in one way or another, has performed.
Yeah, even if it just sits there and does, like I was saying earlier, it gets transfixed. Joe did it to me with Saruman. He transfixed, and of course I failed the first resist spell and spent the next 2 or 3 turns without being able to move, and he'd send 4 or 5 guys to tie it up. Well, you still have the ability to shoot then. So if you just be like rolling 4 dice, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna roll 4 dice because I was fighting Urkai. 2 for the chariot's tax itself, and then 2 for the extra crew. You get a 6 against you fight 6, you fight 5, so you get a 6 against fight 4 guys. You're gonna win. And then I was using the bolt thrower that it has to pick off Joe's Urkai crossbowmen and other targets that he had because it was a scenario-based game. And then eventually, while he was worried about tying it up, that means Saruman's not casting other magic against my other heroes. And I was just using Dane to go do what Dane does. That was one of the few games where Dane did really good for me.
Yeah.
So,
even if somebody does cast magic on it, it's not out of the fight because you still have the bolt thrower, and then if somebody charges it, you still can attack with the additional crew.
Yeah. But we'll wrap up real quick on the magic portion of it. So you can only affect the movement by affecting the driver. We've covered that pretty well now. It cannot be knocked prone. It cannot be
hurled.
Yep, it can't be hurled.
Rended.
It cannot be trapped. It can be rended, I believe. You could use a monster to rend the chariot.
Oh, barge. That's what I was thinking of. It cannot be barged.
Yes, it can't be barged. Yes, because you can't move it against its will.
Yeah.
So if your opponent uses like Sorcerer's Blast or Nature's Wrath or something like that, it'll take the hit, but it won't be knocked prone. And then the last little bit, it is a large war machine, which means if it is hit by a ballista or something like that, it's not going to instant die. So it's not going to do, its own ballista, for example, because that's what Joe did to me with that Mordor game he was talking about, is he did hit it with a, what do you call it? A
catapult.
The catapult. Thank you. I just drew a blank. So it would only take half wounds, and that's good. And any shooting attacks against the crew, this is where the 1 through 5 thing, or 1 through 4 comes in. Normally, in the way it's 1 through 3 hits the mount, 4 through 6 it hits the rider. Well, this is on a 1 through 4, the chariot takes the hit, and a 5 through 6 is the dwarf closest to the shooter. So if you're behind the chariot and shooting at it, you're actually going to be hitting the driver in that situation. And then the last few things about it, it is a chariot that cannot make any jump, climb, leap, or swim test. It may not lie down or defend the barriers, and it may not enter difficult terrain other than shallow water features. So, yeah. Yep. And it doesn't worry anything about those shallow water features. And then, like Dan said, it cannot be barged, hurled, or knocked prone. So, what do you guys think about the chariot?
Well, I think it's really fun. Yeah, I love it. It's a fun piece to use. It's powerful. It's tanky. What's not to love?
I would say purely as someone who's versed the chariot and never actually used it, that it's scary. It's hard to control. And if you verse it, expect to lose a good portion of your army to its movement, unless just somehow your opponent rolls 3 ones every turn to hit something.
Quiet, you. Yes, that was me. Multiple games.
And actually, even before I versed you all, when I played my hobbits, I versed the chariot, and it was running over my hobbits like a lawnmower to grass, until the last turn of the game, where it rolled a 2 highest out of the 3 dice to get on the objective, so it couldn't get on the objective because it couldn't move past like 5 hobbits it had to.
That's hilarious. Yes, it's a great piece. I honestly can say at a 1,000-point event, I would definitely take a ballista, definitely take Dane, definitely take an Iron Hills chariot upgraded with the captain at the very least. I think we were practicing at like 800 points or something like that.
Yeah.
What was the last event we did locally?
It was
820.
825 was the max. It was that escalation event. Or no, sorry, we did 850 before that. 850.
Yeah, our local one in Charlotte area when I hosted it. Yeah, it was 850. So at 850, I took the ballista, I took Dane, I took the catapult, and then just a slew of guys. Yeah, that was a fun practice army to play with. But biggest strengths, you're gonna be able to run things over probably pretty well, unless you're me. You can't roll better than a 2. biggest weakness is the fact that it's got the weird movement and it can't do heroic combats. But yeah, it's a tank, like Dan said. It's gonna scare people. So, all right, guys, that's everything. We have covered Iron Hills, and I think this was a really good chat. What you guys think? Any last thoughts?
So my last thoughts is just on Iron Hills in general. As an army, you're gonna probably be outnumbered model-wise, but the quality of your heroes, the quality of your troops, and if you take stuff like the Iron Hills Ballista and the Chariot, which I kind of see as support units, you take those two things, one or the other, or both. I think you're gonna have a lot of fun. You got a lot of really good tools to deal with really threatening scenarios on the opposition. I think it's a really good army. I think it's solid. It has a lot of good stuff in it.
I agree. I think Iron Hills. It's you see it a lot at on the tournament scene because it is a good army, and it looks aesthetically looks really cool. The Iron Hills was the newest kind of army they've done, so all the models in it are gorgeous.
So. Yeah, I agree. I agree with both those points. Like I said, I think it's probably most people's favorite good army from The Hobbit, and even I would say it's a lot of people's favorite army from The Hobbit supplement. You see Iron Hills much greater than any other Hobbit army. I don't think that would be a bold statement to say. I think that would be accurate to say.
I would agree.
Very, very accurate.
So yeah, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Thank you for subscribing, liking, commenting, following along. We'll be back soon with the next evil army. We may be doing the Hobbit one. You never know. But until then, guys, have fun with your hobby. Stay safe out there. Support your local GFW as much as you can. Support your hobby in general, and don't roll ones like I do. And we'll see you later.